Well, welcome to Through the Eyes of Survivors Uncensored. Uh, Today, I want to open with words definitely have power. We've definitely seen that today. They shape the way we see our world, the way we treat people, the way our systems respond. And recently, the president stood in front of a crowd at the Museum of the Bible and said, this that if a man has a little fight with the wife, they say that was a crime. So now I can't claim 100%. And first, to clarify for accuracy, during a speech at the Museum of the Bible on September 8th, the president minimalized the seriousness of domestic disturbances by calling them much lesser things, suggesting that in a way, when a man has a little fight with the wife, officials may label it a crime, in which, in his view, undermines his ability to claim um, a perfect crime reduction in Washington, D.C., right? And critics have definitely come down and swiftly condemned the language, emphasizing, the dangers of, trivializing domestic violence, particularly when we've been given decades of evidence showing such incidents go vastly unreported and not inflated. And just like that, a little fight was held up as if it was nothing. You know, we as survivors have experienced that when bruises and broken trust and shattered safety could be swept under a rug and made statistics cleaner. But now I want you to stop and imagine something with me. Imagine you're a woman sitting in the audience, a survivor who spent years of being told it's just a fight, don't make a big deal out of it. You're hearing those exact words now, not from your abuser, but from our president. That would cut deep for me as a survivor. It tells me, again, my reality didn't matter. And that's what a lot of people felt when those words came out. But here's the truth. There is a difference between an argument and a fight and a crime. And those differences do matter because if we blur those lines, we erase the harm. Arguments are definitely a part of every relationship. They are uncomfortable and sometimes painful, but they don't destroy safety. A fight, though, begins to chip away at that foundation, right? And when it crosses into a crime, it stops being a private matter it becomes an offense against someone's humanity. And in the eyes of the law, it's an offense against society itself. So tonight's Through the Eyes of Survivors Uncensored, Amanda and I are here to dissect those areas. We're here to reclaim the narrative for survivors. We're here to say that a little fight is not so little when it leaves fear or bruises or scars behind. So, we're going to break this down together. We're going to walk and talk through the real differences between an argument, a fight, and a crime. And we're going to share what survivors have lived and what the research tells us, and why language, the way we label experiences, is more than just semantics. It's the difference between life and death.
Important notice: the following content may be triggering. Viewer discretion is advised. All discussions are based on personal opinions and experiences. If you or someone you know needs help, please reach out to a local support organization. Important notice: the following
All right, we're back. So, before we get started in the topic, of course, I need to real quickly talk about our great affiliates. So, I want to talk about Opus Clips. We're thrilled to partner with them. They are an AI driven platform that is helping to turn podcasts like this into short, powerful moments that are very impactful. And we use them a lot here to help tell survivor stories and hard truths. So if you want to amplify your voice by using Opus Clips, please check out the link below. We're also proud to partner with the Self Defense Keychain Store. Um, this company is owned by women, and they are committed to empowering individuals with practical and stylish self defense tools. So, by shopping our affiliate link, you're not only investing in your personal safety, you're supporting our mission. So, use the link in the description and use the code Break the Silence for 10% off. And lastly, Truth Finder. Truth Finder is a simple tool that helps you uncover public records and background information about people you may encounter in your life. And whether you're reconnecting with someone from the past or just want to ensure the people around you are trustworthy, Truth Finder provides you with the information you need to make informed decisions. And here at Through the Eyes of Survivors, we're all about creating safe spaces. So we want to provide that tool to you to reclaim your power, and that's why we're excited about Truth Finder. I have used it myself. It is fabulous. So try it out and support our podcast. And thank you for supporting our mission out there. So let's start here. Now, every disagreement or debate in a relationship is abuse. Arguments definitely happen. They are definitely a part of being human. The question is, when does an argument shift into something more dangerous? And please feel free in the comments to give us your opinions. Tonight, Amanda and I are going to break this down into plain language. We're going to talk about what an argument looks like when it's safe, and then we're going to look at how those arguments can escalate into what we call fights, where yelling and intimidation or emotional harm enter the picture. And we'll share survivor insights about how those lines get crossed and sometimes they get crossed quietly, and sometimes without even you as the victim even realizing they're getting crossed until too late. So, Amanda, I am so glad you're here with me.
Okay.
All right, so let's talk about what an argument and a disagreement amongst family members look like, right? Especially
Yeah.
with your significant other. So, I know that I have experienced them for sure, and I know you have too, Amanda.
Yeah. Yes. Mhm.
Yeah. So, Amanda, what's kind of like, the typical, like maybe like a definition of what an, argument really is or a disagreement or even a debate in your relationships?
So for that, I fulfill something that you both disagree on. Obviously, but it's not something that is destroying the other person in
Right.
that disagreement. You can disagree on finances. You could disagree on big things in life, but as long is it's not harming physically or mentally that other person. That's where I think it's healthy. I don't think you're always going to agree with your partner. You're not going to always agree with people. Like that's just you're going to opposite. They say opposites attract, and they do. Um, they do, um, and that's okay. And it's okay to not always agree. Because sometimes we learn from those disagreements. We understand each other better from those disagreements. Those are the ones that are okay to have. The ones that I fulfill that are dangerous are the ones that you're being manipulated to agree with them. You're being threatened to be on their side, and they completely discard you if you don't agree.
Right.
Um, if they can respect your opinion and that is different from theirs, that's a healthy way. But if they have to manipulate you or make you feel bad for not agreeing with them, that's so unhealthy.
Yeah, it really breaks down to both people being able to be heard
Mhm.
and listen to each other, and there's definitely no intimidation or threats or fear involved
No,
in a disagreement.
correct.
Um, and voices may even raise. I know I'm gonna call myself out on that. I know I tend to when I get passionate about something that I feel is important to me, my tone goes up.
Mhm.
And And, the same thing with my husband, the tone will come up and sometimes you think, "Why is that person yelling at me?" And they don't realize they're yelling.
Mhm.
Um, or it's just even a difference in tone. It's definitely and it's not yelling, it's something in between. But when it stays within a respectful level of you're not threatening the person or intimidating them, um, that's definitely where you want your boundaries set in a healthy relationship, right?
Absolutely.
So I know it's been frustrating for me many times to sit down and compromise with somebody, especially when you've lived on your own for a while and had to deal with things on your own as a single parent for a while. Learning to discuss with somebody again, even in a healthy way, especially once you've come out of an abusive relationship, can be very difficult.
Mhm. Very,
So, yeah.
very. Yeah, absolutely. Because I think prior, to the abusive relationship, I was better about feeling safe with my feelings and being heard. I always say that like the one thing I always got grounded for as a child was smart mouthing, and my mother would 100% sit here and be nodding her head because it was. So before my abuse, and it wasn't the best way of my communication, was smart mouthing when I would get upset and I
Mm,
didn't know when to stop. So if someone tried to walk away from me, you were making me want to talk to you more. um, and when I got in my abusive relationship, that was all shut down very, very fast from the violence and the intimidation. And so when I remarried, I didn't know how to express my anger healthy. So I would pin it in because I didn't want to be that person. But then it would come out in like a bleh, like, like if someone just ticked me off or I stubbed my toe, everybody knew how I felt in that. So it is. I agree. It's very hard when you come out of abusive relationship to have discussions sometimes. But again, Tara, it's all about, again, to how it ends, how you resolve it. If you guys can leave it with like a healthy, like sometimes even laughing happens because you guys are like, oh, we're both, that was ridiculous. Because I've done that before where I started busting out laughing with someone I was dating because the fight was ridiculous. I was running out of the house. He was running after me, went to pick up his keys that he dropped, and he ripped his pants. And we both started busting out. We started
Yeah.
busting out laughing, and the fight was done because it was just
Yeah.
too. Those are okay, but if you're going home and shaking, physically getting sick, they are texting you. They're not coming down. There's
Right.
no coming down. That's abuse. That's abuse. Everybody, I'm gonna tell you, everybody loses their cool sometimes. It's just the way that you handle your anger in that moment. I mean, we've all done dumb stuff when we're mad. I've done dumb stuff to myself. Like I fell down steps yelling at someone before. I mean, you get so in that moment that you don't know where but it's all about how you control yourself in that moment. Um,
Right.
that's when it turns into something much more escalated.
Right. So let's talk about when it escalates. So, because a fight is not always physical when you start going from a disagreement into a fight. So let's look at that. The argument intensifies
Mhm.
and it has raised to the point of shouting and insults. Well, you are lazy, good for nothing. You can't even keep the house clean, or intimidation. They start to stand over you,
Yeah,
ball up their fist. That's when that line from an argument to a fight starts to get crossed, right?
yeah. And it causes reactive abuse sometimes because you'll even try to walk away, isolate yourself, and they'll break doors down. They'll keep harassing you. They'll keep, even if, I mean, my abuser, he would start fights with me when he was at work. And he would be calling my phone nonstop to the point where it was driving me insane not to answer. So I would keep feeding into his bullcrap. And I would keep answering and answering because the triggering of like the calls. Um, if you both can say, and here's the thing I always say is if their anger is greater than your feelings, that's a red flag.
Right,
If you are physically starting to break in front of this person, if you are starting to show signs of like discomfort, not feeling safe, and you're telling them, please stop, you're making me, and they are ignoring everything you say because their anger is greater than what your comfort or your safety is, that's not safe. It's not
right,
safe.
right. Because the key thing to remember is like a disagreement, it doesn't equal danger. But when you
Mhm.
start to escalate, there's a small bit of danger that starts to become involved the more it escalates and the more it escalates. So it depends on the level of where you are because really a fight becomes a very gray area. It can be from abusive name calling to just full blown conflict. So the word for me becomes very trivialized, because people will say, oh, that's a little fight. But sometimes it's not so little.
Mhm.
And a lot of times, victims and the abusers will use that kind of a term to minimalize what was going on. And that's where we have to be cautious. And when we're listening to victims tell their stories, and even as we're listening to what the abusers say, sitting from the outside looking in. So,
And that's what's right.
Yeah, because it's one thing for me to say, well, if you know, I went and said, oh, we had an argument, boy, we were calling each other some names, and I cursed him up and down, and da da da. There's fight that people have those kinds of arguments, but it when all of a sudden the victim says, well, he blocked the door and I couldn't get out. Well, then the intimidation enters in.
Absolutely.
So it's a next level.
Absolutely. And if there's punishments for that fight too, because I know I was punished from my abuser when we would have fights. I would be treated, I honestly felt like I was back in my parents' house and I was being grounded for smart mouthing my mother. Like that's literally how it was. And he would take electronics with him to work, and it was more of his fear of me leaving too. But he would take phones, computers, and isolate me and make me even feel worse for the fight we had that he created. So that is something they do as well, and that's really hard to deal with because they're not your parents and you shouldn't be punished for anything. you know. But but in that being said, those are things. If they're like, oh well, you got in a fight with me yesterday, so I'm not going to your families tonight, or you gave me attitude, so we're not doing this. That's punishing. That's not fair. You're not their
Right.
child. And I had that happen a lot with like my ex. My like he would be like, "Oh, we're not doing this now because you wanted to run your mouth."
Hmm.
And again, that's not healthy. Getting in fights, being angry with each other, taking a cool off, even maybe not seeing each other for a couple of days. That's fine to set those boundaries as long as they're letting you know those boundaries. But if they're cutting you off, ghosting you, and then coming back, or they're controlling the narrative of your fight, that's a really big red flag.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because they never have to lay a hand on you for a fight to be the type of abuse that we're talking about. There's a lot of times out there people are locked into a very verbally abusive relationship. And I can't tell you how many countless times I have s- gone and spoke before groups of people to have someone in an audience come up and go, I had no clue, but I survived an abusive relationship as well because it was all verbal. They never laid their hands on me, but the the trauma that I have suffered from the words that he hurled out at me, they were damaging.
They
And I
were.
know for me, the experience of the words that were hurled at me were way more damaging to me psychologically, for sure, than the physical acts of violence that happened. So it's not to
Absolutely. And I agree.
trivialize that, but for for our society, a lot of those types of words, like you're fat and you can't get anything right, and all of those kinds of things, um, don't constitute though being criminal.
Mm-mm.
So that's where abusers a lot of times can get away with just saying, "Oh, she blew it out of control. It was just an argument," or even
Right.
vice
Right.
versa. Women do that
Absolutely.
as well, and men don't like to admit that.
Mm-mm.
That they're being talked to or treated that way.
Absolutely.
So, Mr. Jim says, when an argument escalates to raised voices and name calling, it may be abusive but not criminal. If threats of violence, actual violence occurs, it becomes criminal domestic violence. Unfortunately, it is difficult to prove and may be manipulated by the actual abuser. Correct. That's what we were saying. So, thank you, Jim. Yeah, because Uh, you know, for me, when fear entered the room, I don't know about you, Amanda, but when fear entered the room during the argument, it ceased being an argument. The moment fear entered into the equation, then it's time to trust your gut and understand that there's a reason for that fear. Your body is telling you something has been done, something has been said that has created that fearful atmosphere, and it's no longer a conflict anymore. And I think that too often, especially, well, men and women, too often we will, in the moment of it, ignore those feelings because you're with your partner, you're with the person you want to spend the rest of your life with. You've had children with this person, you're making a life with this person, and you don't expect to have fear enter into the picture.
No. It's very weird when you have children with them, and I'm sure you agree, Tara, because here you have this image of a man holding your newborn child, right? And you're like in this moment, right? And then the next, he's threatening your life and he looks like he's about to take your life. Um, that's a weird way that your brain has to process this.
Right.
And I always tell women, don't beat yourself up for that because this ain't normal. It's not normal. It's not normal. So your brain's never going to be like, oh, I can categorize this. You're not. It's so hard, um, because especially with your children, with your abuser, you see them in them, their facial features, their attributes, their quirks, right? I mean, abusers are people too and have quirks and things that are not always violent. So it's so, as I said, before, it's a process of just seeing different things when it comes to having to move forth and value those things, but even in communication, when you're in a fight, I know I've even admitted to this in my marriage. I have to learn to realize my husband's not my abuser,
Right.
and we as survivors struggle with that. We do. Um, it's hard, because we weren't taught how to have a healthy argument. We were taught in a relationship that violence comes with displeasement. It doesn't, you can't sit there and tell them, oh, this is what happened to me. And I need you to respect this. It was more of, we don't care. And this is, if you make me angry, this is how you're going to pay for it. We have some comments. So I'm so excited that you guys are joining in.
Yes, absolutely. So Kimberly, she said, I was married 18 years and experienced emotional, mental, spiritual, verbal, financial, and marital. Yeah, and never knew it could happen in a marriage. Yeah. Took years to heal from it and to think and react in a different way. Well, Kimberly, we're glad that you're healing and that you're still with us. So,
Yes. We're so
yeah,
sorry you had to go through that. Yeah, that's,
yes, ma'am. Too
mm-mm,
many of
no,
us experience the same things.
it shouldn't
And
be
yeah.
common.
And Laura. Hey, Laura. But then how it is explained or justified that you allow you to continue in front of your children, you can be charged for not protecting. We talked about that in a podcast not that long ago. But yet, it's not enough for him to be verbally abusing or threatening you for harm to be charged, or her. The system is outrageous. Exactly. Then, if you were to record the abuse in order to prove it, you can be charged with the crime. It is insanity. Exactly. It
No,
is
it is. It's
exactly
not.
insanity.
We are not safe in what we're trying to do in that. I agree with you, Laura. It's like a cruel circle.
Yes, absolutely. So, we thank you for joining, Liam. Oh my goodness. So yeah. I think this is a good place to take our mid-roll break. Um, so Amanda, um, let's see, what do we have here that we're going to be talking about our virtual retreat. So if you missed the virtual somatic retreat that we had, we are doing another one come October, correct, Amanda?
Yes, yes, October 10th and 11th. That's a
Yeah.
Friday and a Saturday, so 2 day, and it's on a weekend.
Yes, and it's an incredible opportunity for survivors to come together, heal in community and support. So, we're going to play you a short video clip, and we're going to be right back to talk more about our topic.
Are you feeling completely drained, so tired of being on all the time, of constantly pushing through? That exhaustion is more than mental. Your body is holding on to stress as deep physical tension. It's time to give yourself permission to let go. Join our Rest and Restore virtual somatic healing retreat October 10th and 11th. Through guided breathwork, meditation, and EFT tapping, you'll learn to release what no longer serves you, all from the comfort of your home. As you heal, you'll also raise crucial funds for Break the Silence, supporting vital programs for domestic violence survivors. Find the details at the link in our bio. It's time to stop performing rest and start to truly restore your mind, body, and spirit. Are you feeling?
All right, we're back.
We're back.
So if you would like to join us, look for the link in the description and in the comments. Like we said, that's October. What'd you say, Amanda? Again, I'm
October
sorry.
10th and 11th. You're
10th and
fine.
11th.
October.
I'm losing track of my dates, everyone. But yes, so definitely take advantage of that. You will definitely not regret it. So, um, now let's get back to things and let's get like really serious, right? Because there is a big difference between this heated fight and even some verbal abuse and what is considered a crime. And too often people, even leaders, brush them together as if they're all one and the same, and they're not. And when abuse crosses into a crime, the law will recognize it, right? They recognize it under terms like assault, harassment, stalking, coercive control, sexual violence, right? And survivors know this isn't just about losing your temper. So, again, like we were talking about earlier, it's about losing your safety. So, in the second half, we're going to look better at what legally counts as a crime and why survivors hesitate to report it, like we were had in our comments there, and why minimalizing that, again with the words a little fight, puts lives at risk, right, Amanda?
Yeah. Yeah.
S- So, do you want to
Absolutely.
start off here about when it becomes a crime?
The moment that it becomes physical, the moment that you're hit, shoved, harmed in any kind of bodily way, that's a crime. Also, if there is repetitive calling, stalking when you were asked to be left alone,
Harassment?
if there
Yeah.
harassment, hostage, holding you hostage, flattening your tires so you can't leave, stealing your keys, taking your phone, not giving you a way of an option to leave. That is when it becomes all the things of what I would say would be criminal. Even as you said, again, intimidation. I'm gonna do certain things to your family, or to your children or our children.
Hmm.
Um,
Or to you.
yes, or even pets.
Hmm.
Pets.
Yes. That's a big one.
Um, yeah.
Pets are more involved than people think in the way that they
Yes.
use fear and threat tactics. Well, and then there's all the non-consensual acts of sex that go on as well that they use on you, and coercive control where they manipulate you, right? Because financial abuse and isolation, constant surveillance, that all falls under that coercive control, and more states are starting to recognize that as a crime.
Hmm. Absolutely. They're really trying to get that more understanding of why this is illegal. Because when you do coercive control, you're taking away people's rights to just be a human, and that's not okay. Just because you are putting up boundaries or you're no longer with that person. Um, I've had so many instances in my abuse where, you know, I didn't know what he was doing in those arguments and think that he was doing was so illegal. I had, even intimidation of him taking things that were precious to me and breaking them, or humiliating things that, the humiliation, um, or bullying, the bullying of certain things when he would get mad. It was like it flipped from having someone that loved you to someone that actually was your bully in school. They have many different ways. I had the ashes of my dog that passed away, and this was a dog that I raised. It was a neglected dog, and I got it when I was 19 years old. And he passed away when I was 21, and I was pregnant with my oldest child. And my abuser knew how much this dog meant to me because he was there when he passed away, when he was put down, and I got his ashes. But because of the inconsistency of where he was always getting us evicted, I never had anywhere to bury him. So I'd always carry him in his little like urn that I got from the vet.
Oh,
And in an argument, he opened the window and dumped his ashes all over
oh, hell no!
and made me watch it go. Oh, it was raining. So he went outside 30 minutes later with a broom and a dustpan and told me that if he didn't love me, he wouldn't be doing this. I still have the can. The can's very busted up. The bag was ripped open. I had to see my animal's remains. And that was because he was mad at me. So they can do so many hurtful things
Hmm.
when they get mad. And when they do things like that, that's beyond. That's
Yeah,
beyond.
that is just beyond. I can't even comprehend someone doing something like that to my babies that had passed. Oh my goodness. And
Yeah.
your pets are like your babies too. I mean, it's not.
That was like my first child. Yeah. He was neglected. He was a rescue dog. And I was the one who got him to like walk up steps again. And um, so it was very hard that he discarded him like that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's definitely a level of disrespect that makes it so hard within the system. Definitely. Um, you know, some of like those kind of tactics is what makes over half of domestic violence incidents never be reported to the police. Because how do you express even something like that? It's not going to be considered criminal,
Hmm.
but the weight of that is devastating. And, the police are not good at when it is physical, let alone when it's something like that. So they're not helpful.
Mm-mm. No.
And mm-mm.
And I feel like it just it escalates the situation if there's no resolution because you just ticked him off more.
Right, right. It takes me back to the days of when the cops came for me and they would say, oh, it takes two of you to fight. You just need to go take a walk. And they'd send them out
Walk.
for a walk.
Hmm.
And like if they could just break us up for a little bit, that would make it all better. And it didn't matter. As mine, I don't know how everybody else's is, and I've heard other women have experienced it too, but mine was very good at hiding whatever he did physically so that he didn't have to leave bruises
Yes.
or not real visible marks, because he sure didn't want people to see what was going on. So it makes it hard. And then when you have officers treat it like that, I learned very quickly, don't call the cops again.
Mm-mm. No.
They weren't going to do a thing to help me.
And I felt like they got annoyed. They got
Hmm.
annoyed sometimes. Like I felt like I was like bothering them. And as a survivor, you have already a fear of men, but then when you feel like you're annoying someone, you don't feel safe to be supported by them. And I've had so many times where cops have come in and it's just like, what would you want me to do? I'm like, "But that's why I called you. Like you know, like that's why I'm coming to you. Not if I could control this, I would have never called you." And just like you, Tara, there was a point where I was like, I'll never do this again. I will never call again. And
Hmm.
that shouldn't be that way.
Hmm.
It shouldn't.
Well, and let's play devil's advocate for a little bit on the other end. Like, how many times does a neighbor maybe call because they hear someone arguing, which is a good step because you never know. But then the cops walk into it and it is just an argument. And
Yep.
I think that's part of where I think the president got a little convoluted with his comment, because I think he's thinking along those lines, but he isn't realizing the true nature of how these things can escalate and how hidden they are. And the authorities live it, they know it, but 15% of violent crime out there is domestic violence, period. And so it's not something you're going to be able to sweep away because it's in the home. You're not going to get a 100%
No.
of reduction of crime because it's in the home. We can't put an armed guard in every home, and that's the problem.
No,
So,
I agree. I agree. Oh, we have another comment from Gina.
Gina, let's see. The police didn't even take photos of my bruises when I reported my abuser. They had my back to the door as more people showed up. They never introduced me to them. I never felt safe there. There were outside laughing too. Yeah. I never really heard what they were talking about, so I assumed they were laughing about me. I felt ashamed. I just wanted to leave. My abuser was never punished. I am so sorry, Gina, that happened. You
I
know,
am. I'm so sorry, Gina. That's not.
that's not a good feeling. It's not.
No, and it's unprofessional. It's unprofessional. You were in distress. You were having one of the worst nights of your night day of your life, and they're out there acting like this is a cookout, and that's not. It's not okay, and it's not even any kind of professionalism. I'm so sorry that happened to you.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the one thing, like these little fights, quote, quote, uh,
Mm.
people don't understand that, the violence that comes like that, you're five times more likely to be killed when that line crosses into the areas that we're talking about where the incidents are considered criminal.
Absolutely.
So there's an absolute danger there.
I mean, there has been domestic violence cases where people have accidentally been killed because of the anger of their abuser. And they weren't even trying to purposely take their life. They were just out of control in their behavior, hit the person the wrong way, and they were gone. And that's what I think. And I don't know if you thought about this, Tara, but I did. I thought that in the back of my head a lot, because even in the moments where I didn't fulfill his end game was to take my life, he did not understand how easily it could have been done without being planned.
Right.
And that's the scary factor in it as well, guys. Um, Sometimes it happens when it's not even planned to happen because they can't control their rage.
Right. Mm, no. And we'd love to hear from y'all out there. Why do you think society tolerates like the emotional abuse end of it until it does become physical? Uh,
Right.
because the emotional abuse in a lot of ways, depending upon the words that are being used, what's the word I'm looking for? It is a precursor. They're letting you know with those words before it gets physical. I guess that's what
Right.
I'm trying to say. Yeah.
Like the threatening words, like kind of like warning you,
Mhm.
warning that it's gonna happen.
Right.
Um, or even talk about the past of their ex girlfriends, like, oh, well, when she got like this, I used to have. So don't make me be that way with you.
Right.
Take serious what those threats are, because most likely it's going to start to escalate if they're comfortable with threatening you.
Right. Well, this is why minimalizing it with your words can be so dangerous because like we were talking about before that it was just a fight, don't blow it out of proportion. uh it makes it easier for the next time to minimalize the next step because a lot of times abuse, for not everyone but a lot of times, it's an escalation, right? So if you minimalize it this time in the next fight, it escalates just a little more. You
Right.
minimalize that one and it escalates just a little bit more. And by the time we have minimalized it back at the beginning, um, and discouraged reporting in that way, it has emboldened the abuser
Yeah.
to go further and further
It sees how much
because
they can push. Yeah.
number 1, the authorities already minimalized it, so if they're called back out, they're not what they already have a preconceived notion in their head that the 2 of you are just fighting,
Right.
um, or arguing or whatever because it's already been trivialized. Um, but then the abuser has become emboldened because usually by the time he's escalated and on up the ladder there, um, we as victims have already just stopped reporting. We've already stopped. We're done. Nobody's going to help us. Nobody's coming to rescue us.
Right.
Um, and and it is shameful in a way of we're made to feel shame. That's what I'm looking for. Like it
Yeah.
creates the shame within you
Yes.
that
Yeah.
you are the problem.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I never had a positive experience personally with police when I called for their help.
Right.
Um, so that again is why I was like, I can't do this anymore. I felt more, as you said again, embarrassed. I felt more like I was over dramatizing it, that I was just as bad as him. Um, because when you are so caught up in those abuses, you become reactive abuse. So then you're like, well, I was screaming at him too. And I was, so you try to rationalize yourself because, I mean, my abuser was able to cut his anger real fast off and go, look at you. You're
Mhm.
crazy. What are you do? Why are you acting? Can you calm down? And it would be like, wait, but like 2 seconds ago you were what's happening? So when that happens with them, and then you have a police officer saying, I think you're just as bad as him, and if I get called out here one more time, I'm
Yeah,
taking
that.
your kids and you both are going to jail.
Mhm. Well, it gives a cover. It's
Yeah.
giving the abuser cover. When we allow it to be trivialized like that, we give them cover.
More
And
power. They
and
get more
that's it.
more emotional high.
Mhm.
More power, more emotional. Oh, okay, I can get away with more. Let's see what else I can do.
Yeah, that part. Oh my goodness. So, yeah, well, Amanda, um, do you think the legal system should recognize coercive control as abuse, like as a crime?
Yeah. Yes. Yes. I mean, this changes the courses of people's life. This makes people lose their lives from their own hands. Sometimes people lose their homes, they lose their kids, they lose things that matter to them over something that was not done by them. Yes, 100%, because they know what they're doing. And when you are physically going after someone's life financially, mentally, physically, that should be a crime.
No, I agree because I think it's even more insidious in some ways when you combine all the coercive control along with the physical aspects that are going on within abuse in your home. Because a lot of times they use so many different levels coming at you. And of course, the worst one
Yeah.
is always the kids. Because
Yeah,
Because even the kids start to be will start to minimalize what's happening, and they normalize
absolutely.
it. So
Yes,
we minimalize it, then the kids minimalize it, and we're perpetuating the system.
correct.
Yeah, and there's gotta be a healthier way, um, to make that better for our kids because the last thing any of us want to do is perpetuate the system so that the kids all think we have another generation who thinks that violence is the answer to control and get what you want.
No, no, and that's where we have to start showing different, because that is what we've always been taught, is if you hurt someone, manipulate someone, you get things much more easier than in respecting in the honest way.
Hmm.
It's not true. It's not true.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So to bring it back full circle, though, then we've got to start instituting within our families and ourselves how to disagree and talk to one another because that next generation is counting on us that it's okay to not agree with what another person says, but it's not okay to cross that boundary into
No,
violence.
no.
And I think that's the key because a lot of times here lately people have started to say that words have become um violent, and like we discussed, in some ways, it can be threatening, uh, but I don't think society right now as a whole knows what's healthy either. They're not recognizing that. What can be healthy dialogue
Mhm.
even though you disagree. So,
I agree.
well, Amanda, is there
I agree.
anything else you wanna say before we start closing out today's broadcast?
Just remember, guys, it's okay to disagree. It's okay to have an argument. You're not going to always be at your best with anyone sometimes, even friends, family, your children, your spouse. But when you leave that argument, if it is physically and emotionally taking you down, that is not, it's not okay. It's not okay. And to notice those signs faster, because as Tara said, the more that we continue to accept it, it's going to continue to escalate. It's going to get worse every time. They're going to take it up a level every time. And if you can control that dynamic before it gets to somewhere it's harder to return from, I definitely encourage you to.
Yes, absolutely. Well, as we wrap up tonight's episode, I just want to leave you with this arguments and disagreements, debates, those kinds of things are normal and they can be healthy, but fights can cause harm. But crimes, when it escalates into crime, it steals peace and safety and sometimes even lives. Your words do matter. And when anyone calls abuse a little fight, it erases the truth of what survivors endure. That's why conversations like this one matters, because when we name things for what they are, we're creating a space for change. And if you'd like to support survivors directly, visit our BTSADV store. Every purchase there helps fund programs like our aftercare and healing and hope retreats and etc. And don't forget to stay tuned into our next episode of Survivor to Survivor on Fridays, where survivors' questions are answered straight from other survivors. And um, that's on Fridays at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time as well. And if you want to submit a question, please email us at podcast@breakthesilencedv.org. Also, we do have a TikTok. You can look for us on TikTok at BTSADV7. We have new episodes of what we call the NARC Diaries over there, where we break down the words and tactics of our narcissistic abusers. So check that out. Follow us there. And finally, remember, if you or someone needs support, call our support line at 1-855 BTS 1777. It's open for a listening ear and resources from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, so you are not alone. And before we close completely tonight, I do want to take a moment to acknowledge what a lot of people are sharing heartbreaking news all across social medias right now. We've learned of the tragic passing of Charlie Kirk, who was shot while sharing his voice at a conference in Utah. And while many knew him to be a political figure, what I want to honor here is his bold faith. I believe he was a powerful voice for the Lord, and his loss is deeply felt by many people. And as someone who has personally experienced the devastation of firearm violence and held a loved one during those final moments, I definitely know the weight of the kind of grief that him and his family are having right now. So I just want to say my heart goes out to his family because of that, and to everyone else who's mourning him tonight, because violence like that is never acceptable. And I believe it's more than politics, it's spiritual warfare. So as we leave you, I ask that we lift up his family, especially his little children, in prayer. I remember that the way we live, the way we use our words, it definitely has eternal weight. So um, we thank you for joining us on this podcast, and we'll see you next time on Through the Eyes of Survivors. We hope you're enjoying this episode of Through the Eyes of Survivors. We wanted to pause for a moment and let you know that Through the Eyes of Survivors has a shop now open. And this is a great way for you to not only help survivors of domestic violence, but also let everyone know that you will not be silent about this important cause. From t-shirts to bags to coffee mugs, we have so much to choose from. To grab your swag, head to our store at breakthesilencedv.org. That's store.breakthesilencedv.org. We can't say enough about how much we appreciate all that the community does to help support us and this organization. So we hope you've enjoyed this episode and continue to subscribe to future episodes. Thank you.